3 days, Hurricane Elsa had slashed at the Florida Keys and whipped the seas into giant 30-foot waves. She had stormed and raged, taking her toll of lives and property ashore and afloat. Among her victims was a test boat belonging to Webb Electronics Corporation. On a calm morning, following the passage of the storm, the Electra lay in 40 feet of water. There should have been no one alive aboard her. But in her hold were 2 silent divers. They knew exactly where to look for what they wanted. They forced open a locker. From it, they took an intricate electronic device. After placing it in a metal case, they got ready to leave the boat. The 2 men left the Electra the same way that they had entered her, by a gaping hole in her hull. But suddenly, the second man's air hose caught on a jagged piece of metal. Instead of remaining calm, he panicked. He struggled desperately to free himself.
Where's Hendrick? He was right behind me. He should have come up first. Something must have happened. The man who had panicked would survive. But his survival almost cost me my life. I was conducting underwater firing tests of a pistol for the Jupiter Arms Corporation. A bullet's range underwater is limited. It cannot be fired with great accuracy. My job was to find out just how effective a pistol could be in close underwater combat. What's up?
There's a gentleman who wants to see you.
Mike Nelson?
That's me.
I want to talk to you. Can you come aboard? I'm Cyrus Webb of Webb Electronics. This is urgent, very urgent. It can't wait. Can you come aboard?
Okay.
She couldn't have, but she did. Went down like a barrel of cement somewhere in this 5-mile area.
What do you mean she couldn't have, but she did?
The Electra had an unsinkable hull, an airspace design that guaranteed she'd rot before she sank. She didn't sink. She was sent down.
Well, sunk or sabotaged. She's just a speck down there. I don't see how I could help you out any.
You've got to, Nelson. Look now. The Electra was a test boat, testing a guided missile tracker I was developing for the government. It proved out The government's waiting for me to deliver it now. The very safety of this country may well depend on it. And it was a prototype, the only one there is. I've got to recover it.
But searching 5 square miles of the ocean floor, it's just not possible for one man.
I'm not asking you to. This yacht's rigged with radar and a fathometer. I'll locate the Electra. You bring me up my piece of equipment. What do you say?
Okay.
In this sleek, fast boat, it didn't take us long to get the search underway. Inside the cabin, the skipper and the technician threw all the weight of the latest scientific equipment into action. Electronic devices probed the ocean bottom and scanned the surface of the water. Sonar, radar, and fathometer reported visually and orally on oscilloscopes, audio oscillators, and video recorders.
We've completed the first leg, Mr. Webb.
I reverse course.
Yes, sir.
How far apart are you running these search pads?
We're getting a 360-degree search on the surface with the radar. We might pick up some of the Electra's debris. We're covering the bottom with the fathometer. Keep your eyes peeled on that.
We're watching it, sir. Radar contact. Where? 80 degrees, about 5 miles. Let me take a look. It's too big for debris. Must be a boat. I'll give it a call.
The boat ahead answered that she was fishing. Meantime, the boat underwater, the sunken Electra, continued to elude us. For the next hour, we continued the search.
This is the last leg of the pattern, isn't it?
Yes. We don't find her this time, we've missed her.
Either that or the Electra's in the bottom, somewhere outside of the area.
How about it? See anything? Nothing but that same boat as before.
We'll widen the search pattern by a mile.
Mr. Webb,
Yeah?
isn't that the same boat that your radar picked up before? Wonder what she's lying out there for.
Well, she said she was fishing.
Fishing? These waters this time of year?
What's that boat dead ahead? Half a mile.
Yes, sir. She's moving off slowly, sir. We'll watch it. Mr. Webb! I think we got it this time.
This must be it. Let's go see.
Well, good luck, boy.
Yeah, let's hope this is it.
Even from this distance, it was easy to identify her. It was the Electra, all right. When I got down to her hull, I was not surprised to find a hole big enough to swim through. But I was surprised when I saw that the metal had been blown outward. Only an explosion from inside could have done it. Webb was apparently right in suspecting sabotage. Inside the hold, I tried to orient myself. Webb had given me a pretty good description of the Electra's layout. These were the lockers Webb had described to me. The microfinder should be in the one at the far left and on the top. Somebody had already forced the locker open. Somebody had gotten away with a microfinder.
I swam back the way that I had entered, searching for some clue to the theft of the electronic device. Perhaps the deck in the vicinity of the explosion might turn up something. What I came upon was the last thing that I expected to find: a torn piece of a diver's air hose.
There's no doubt about it. It was an explosion. There was a hole that big in her hull.
Which means that whoever did it beat us to the wreck and to the microfinder. But they couldn't have gone down last night in all that storm.
There's no film, no slime on this. Could have been in the water for more than a couple of hours. Hey, that boat, the one we sighted, it was in this area.
That's right. We had her on our scope right about here.
Then that's where the hose came from. A diver from that boat. Where's she now?
She's out of sight.
Can you get a radar contact?
Yeah, she's just over the horizon. Bearing 85 degrees, speed 10 knots.
Keep tracking her, but stay out of sight.
Right.
Let's find out what she's up to.
Right.
We were taking a chance, and we knew it. Men desperate enough to dynamite a ship were not worried too much about our lives if we got in their way. Our yacht stayed out of sight of the boat that we were following. Our radar antenna was high enough to track her. Our quarry was headed southeast. She seemed to be slowing down.
They seem to be heading for that island over there. Let's look at the chart, huh?
Captain?
Let's see, they seem to be heading for this cove here.
Yeah, I'd say so, too. This other cove on the opposite side of the island, Captain. You acquainted with that?
Sure.
You think you could get in there and not let them see us?
I think so.
My idea is to go ashore, cut across this isthmus, find out what they're up to.
Right. Get around that, Captain. Yes, sir.
Ten minutes later, we had circled around the point of the island. The other boat hadn't seen us, but we were close enough for me to reach it underwater. A 15-minute swim brought me to a point from which I'd be able to see the boat and check my bearings. She was no more than 100 yards away. I swam what I judged to be 100 yards and looked up. And there she was. Then I noticed a cave opening just below me. Could there be some connection between it and the boat? Why had the boat stopped right over a cave? I decided to have a look.
Hey, come here. Look at that. Looks like a diver. Was there anybody around when we were down below?
No?
There's no boat around here now. That doesn't mean there's no diver down there. Let's get our gear and take a look.
An iron stake with a heavy cord tied to it leading into a tunnel. Had they hidden that microfinder down here? To make sure I'd find my way out, I blazed an underwater trail. I didn't know that finding my way out wouldn't be my only problem. Two men were already between me and the exit. I was no longer in a tunnel, but a cave system, a maze of interconnecting passageways, hardly big enough for me to get through. If the cord that I was following ever broke, I might never get out. This was the narrowest passageway that I'd encountered yet. I marked my trail again. These two knew that I was in the passageway ahead. They also knew that there was no other exit than this. They got set to take me when I returned. Meanwhile, at the other end of the passageway, I discovered the microfinder. Triumphantly, I grabbed it, not knowing that the men who had hidden it were waiting to take it away from me. I had to put down the microfinder to get through the narrow passageway. That was just what the men were waiting for me to do. That's what they had planned on. I was taken by surprise. Fortunately, the cave was so narrow that only one man at a time could get near me. I put the first attacker out of business by ripping out his mouthpiece. Then I blinded him by pulling off his faceplate. The second man had grabbed the microfinder. I remembered the pistol. My bullet clipped his regulator. The impact and the concussion knocked him off his feet. My first attacker finally groped his way back to his faceplate. Once he could see again, he was able to help his buddy. The two divers started after me again. Worried by my long absence, Webb had decided to come around the point to see if I needed help. When I surfaced, I saw the strange boat speeding away. When my two attackers reached the surface, they found themselves with nowhere to go, except straight into our arms. A quick call to the Coast Guard gathered in the third man, too.
Hello there. I'm Lloyd Bridges. You know, 3/5 of the world is covered by the sea, and how little most of us know about that underwater world. Go below with us again next week, huh? For another thrilling adventure in Sea Hunt.
I was just a kid when I first read that wonderful novel by Alexander Dumas, The Count of Monte Cristo. There was one episode that I could never forget. It's when Edmond Dante has removed the body of his friend from the burial sack, and he's sewn himself inside of it instead. He believed that when the burial sack is carried to the prison cemetery, he may be able to escape. But something heavy is attached to his legs, a cannonball. Even then, he doesn't realize that the cemetery of his prison is the sea, deep below. Unexpectedly, he feels himself being swung back and forth, and then being carried down into the sea inside the sack, which can become his shroud. But in my wildest nightmares, I never thought a day would come when it would be me inside that burial sack. Claustrophobia is something that you just cannot suffer from if you've worked as I have, beneath the sea. And I've been in some pretty confined places, too, that'd give almost anyone claustrophobia. I've been closed up inside of a two-man sub with hardly room to move, and I've been in a natural tunnel deep in an underwater rock, so narrow in places that I could barely squeeze through. And once I spent a full hour encased in an underwater pipeline. But never have I felt the full terror of claustrophobia myself until that experience inside the burial sack. It all began when I received a phone call from the Atlas movie studios. They wanted me to come to the location where they were making a new version of The Count of Monte Cristo. I walked through the grounds of what seemed like a castle, no doubt the Chateau d'If, the prison from which Dante escapes. Then down below, I spotted the company on the beach, busy photographing a scene. The man that I was looking for would be down there. The producer-director was a man that I respected, Walter Wilcox. He had a reputation for integrity and realism in his pictures.
Mike, I want to try something different with the aid of underwater photography. When that burial sack goes down into the sea, I want the audience to go right down into the sea with it. I want the audience to be able to look at this man underwater, fighting his way out of that sack. I want to shoot this scene in the sea itself, with your help.
Sounds great. Want me to double your star, huh?
Well, maybe he does, but I don't.
Well, this is our star, Bill Hill.
Hill?
Excuse me, this is our leading lady, Laura Pepper.
You're excused. Just leave him here.
You want to watch out for her, Mike. Oh, this is Mr. Hill's secretary and stand-in, Mr. Mercer. Mike Nelson.
Mr. Nelson, Mr. Mercer.
Mr. Hill thinks he's perfectly capable of doing this stunt himself. In that, Bill, we disagree.
Walter, that's part of my box office, remember? I do my own stunts, and I'm going to do this one. What I'd like of you, Mr. Nelson, is to train me and then be my safety man when I try it.
Well, we can argue that point later. Maybe this stunt can't be done safely at all. We'll have to find that out first. And Mike, that'll be up to you. You want to take it on?
Please do it, Mr. Nelson.
Well, if the Count of Monte Cristo could do it, I don't see why I can't. Sounds like a lot of fun. I started by looking over the area in which the scene would have to be filmed. Currents didn't seem to be any problem, and it certainly was deep enough. I took regular readings on a light meter. The water had the clarity needed to permit excellent photography. Sharks. I made a mental note to recommend that the cameraman should work from inside a cage. I was reasonably certain that these sharks wouldn't bother us, but he'd work better behind some protection. Altogether, everything seemed to be satisfactory. But the big question still was unanswered. Whether a man inside that burial sack could cut himself out in time to escape drowning, or sharks, or anything else that might happen. There was one way to find out. Try it myself. That would be next.
Benny. Yes, sir.
Knife, too dull.
But this is supposed to be a crude knife that Monte Cristo makes in jail himself.
I just want to be able to get out of that sack in time, huh?
Yes, sir, Mr. Nelson. Mr. Wilcox says you're the boss. Anything you want. Oh! What's wrong?
Cannonball, it's much too heavy. Take a man down too fast and too far.
But Mr. Wilcox likes authentic props. These are the real McCoy. I went out of my way to
Can't
find
you
them.
make a dummy one that looks like it but weighs a lot less?
Yes, sir. Anything you say.
Okay, and that knife, too, huh?
Yes, sir.
What?
Raise a shot, Mr. Nelson.
Sharper.
All right.
Mr. Nelson, say, when you make that trial dive this afternoon, I'd like to be your safety man. Well, you see, I've done quite a bit of scuba diving, and, well, if you haven't made any other arrangement, I'd really appreciate the chance.
Well, as a matter of fact, I was just on my way now to see if I could get a safety man. You, mind if I check you out first?
No, not at all. Thanks for the break, Mr. Nelson.
What do you mean, call that a break?
Well, it could get Mr. Wilcox to really notice me. And he's got another picture coming up with a part that's, well, if a director really likes you, it can mean a lot. Besides, Mr. Wilcox has his way. I'm the one who'll do this stunt, not Bill.
Well, how's that going to sit with Bill?
Look, I've been worrying about Bill since we were in college. It's time I started worrying about me. He got his break. I'm still waiting for mine. That guy can't wait forever.
I'll see you at 2 o'clock, huh? I checked Ed out a few hours later. He handled himself very well. He knew all the signals, and more important, he understood teamwork. Being underwater for a prolonged period didn't seem to bother him at all, but I wanted to make sure. I tried him out on a sharp turn to see whether his reflexes had become sluggish or had been affected in any way, but he just ate it up. He was a real eager beaver, ready to show me every trick in his book. He wanted to keep right on. I finally had to stop him before we ran out of air. But I was well satisfied. He'd be an excellent safety man.
Hiya, Mike.
Bill, I didn't recognize you.
This is what I wear in the prison scenes.
Okay, head down now. Here we go.
I'll see you all later.
Mike,
Yeah, it's me.
you all right?
Yeah, it's in my nose, it just... You got that stopwatch?
Yes. I'll time it from the moment you hit the surface to the moment you reappear. You sure you've got the knife?
Yeah, got it right here.
Good.
Hey, Benny,
Yeah.
give me a couple of seconds, huh, before you throw me over. Let me hyperventilate.
Okay. Where do we put the counterborn on now, huh?
He acted as my safety man. He took his position at 50 feet.
We can handle it. We got him. Okay. Boy, he's heavy.
A movie director and his crew were counting the seconds anxiously while I made myself the guinea pig in an underwater test. It was to see whether a man sewn into a loose sack with a cannonball tied to his legs could hold his breath, cut himself free, and reach the surface before blacking out.
How long has he been down?
A minute and 20 seconds.
Ed, the safety man, was standing by with air if I needed it. But before I let anyone else try it, I had to know what the limit would be. It took all my willpower to resist Ed's help. My lungs felt like balloons about to burst. I had made it.
It looks great. You have any trouble?
Oh, a little.
You feel all right?
What was my time?
It was an eternity. I thought you'd never come up.
That's much too long. I lost my knife, for one thing. Gotta tie this down, Benny.
All right, tie the knife down, right.
To the wrist, huh?
Okay.
A couple of other things like that need to be done before I can let your man get out of that sacking, but your stunt can be done. It'll work.
Good. How many more rehearsals do you think you'll need before we can shoot it?
Just one more ought to do it. But I'm going to be the safety man from now on. I figure the man who really does a stunt ought to have at least one rehearsal inside of that sacking before you take it. What do you say?
Well, I think so, too.
Who's that man going to be?
Ed, can you be ready for the dress rehearsal by tomorrow morning?
Yeah.
The assistant will give you both a definite call.
That's gonna be all right.
Uh-huh.
You're right, Benny. There's plenty of room in there for the camera crew.
Oh, yeah.
We shoot through these windows here.
Ed, I've made up my mind about this stunt. I've just got too much at stake to let anybody else do it. I've been telling the press for weeks now that nobody'd be in that sacking but me, and that's who it's got to be.
Thought this was settled.
Look, Mike, I'll level with you. I know I'm not the world's greatest actor, but this physical stuff, well, that's my special angle, my big appeal.
Yeah, I know, Bill, but Mr. Wilcox said that
Ed, you're still working for me, and that's the way I want it. And that's final.
Thanks.
Because Ed told you that this was his big opportunity, And I suppose he told you in the last 2 years I've gotten him no less than 3 screen tests, and he muffed them all. Ask anybody in the crew. Ask Benny.
It's true.
He just hasn't got what it takes.
Now, this stunt is still my responsibility, you know.
Mike, I've got a proposition for you. I want to try it. If I foul up or you say I'm too slow, whatever, I'll accept it. Word of honor.
No, I don't know, Bill. Mr. Wilcox will never forgive me.
You'll be there as safety man. What could go wrong?
If you don't pass the tests, I tell you to forget all about it. There'll be no arguments with me or with Mr. Wilcox.
Not another word.
But you gotta carry a diving lung in that sack with you.
Okay? It's a deal.
I didn't know whether I was making a mistake or not, but I didn't see how I could lose either way. If Bill handled himself badly underwater, he'd be out of our hair. If he handled himself well, it would make my job easier. Bill was a superb natural athlete. He was out of the sacking and had freed himself in amazing time, as though everything had zippers. I couldn't do any better myself, nor did I know anyone else who could. Bill could be sure that I'd give him the highest marks. He was counting on that in his showdown with the director, and it was a showdown.
Walter, you know I'm not trying to be temperamental. I'm just trying to do the same thing you are. Make a better, more exploitable picture.
We can't shoot it today anyway.
So what happens tomorrow? Do I do it then? Walter?
Look, supposing something happens to you down there.
Nothing's going to happen to me. Mike will be there with me. Why don't you leave it up to him? I'll go along with anything he says, but just ask him.
You heard it. Well, I'm asking.
Oh, he can do it.
On your say-so. Okay.
Bill was made up as the Count of Monte Cristo, and the director was giving him his last-minute instructions and telling him that I had arrived at a last-minute decision, too. Just to play it as safe as humanly possible, I had notified the director that I was taking Bill's stand-in down with me as an additional safety man. Bill agreed that this was a good idea. Relying on Ed was to prove a tragic mistake, but none of us knew it then. Ed also was very agreeable to the suggestion. If things went as he had planned them, he'd be my last resort, and he had his own ideas about that. I directed Ed toward the position that I wanted him to take as the reserve safety man. The shark cage with the camera crew inside was lowered into the water. The cameraman released a marker, a signal that they were all set. After that, things moved fast. In another second or two, he would have the knife out and cut himself free. Instead, he kept on kicking and twisting. This wasn't what Bill was supposed to do at all. I thought at first that Bill was acting, prolonging it for the sake of the drama. It was logical. More seconds went by. Too many. Precious seconds. I waited until I could wait no longer. In I went. I cut at the sacking, but my knife wouldn't penetrate. I realized that somehow I had the wrong knife. I beckoned for Ed to come, and I tore at the sacking with my hands. I pulled with everything I had, trying to make the stitches give where the prop man had sewn them. I signaled to Ed again. But instead of swimming to me, he swam away from me. Then the sacking parted. I gave Bill air until his strength came back. Cannonball from his legs. We rose together. What happened to you down there when I needed you?
Well, I guess I panicked. I'm sorry, Mike.
Did you get our knives mixed up?
No. What do you mean?
Let me see it.
Hi there. I'm Lloyd Bridges. Skin diving is certainly a lot of fun, and it's full of adventure. See some more of it again next week, huh? When there'll be another excursion into that fabulous underwater world of Sea Hunt.
I'm Mike Nelson. Business? Well, just about anything. Underwater. This job was a technical one. I had to take slow-motion underwater photographs of the action of an outboard motor in operation. I was concentrating on operating the camera, which was why I didn't notice my visitor at first. When I did see her, I waved her off. I didn't want anyone getting in the way. I checked the light again with my underwater exposure meter. Suddenly, I felt the meter being pulled out of my hand. Before I realized what had happened, she had swum off with it. I couldn't work without that meter. I wanted to catch her and wring her neck. But catching her wasn't as easy as I'd expected. Whoever she was, she cut through the water like a torpedo. She got to the dock before I could reach her.
What an asinine stunt that was. What was the idea? What are you trying to prove?
Prove? Why, something simple. That I can outswim any man on Earth, including the famous Mike Nelson.
Perhaps I can explain, Mr. Nelson. I'm Taylor Field, Public Relations Counselor. Allow me to introduce Blaze Green.
Oh, Blaze Green, yeah, I remember. He swam the English Channel about 3 or 4 months ago. In a bikini bathing suit.
Nobody complained about the view.
Oh, you must be pretty proud of yourself. That was quite a publicity stunt. Just don't pull any more stunts like the one you just pulled, or I'll have you hauled in as a public nuisance.
Oh, wait a minute. That wasn't just a publicity stunt. Blaze was trying to prove a point.
You see, Mike, I believe I'm good, better than any man alive.
The Daily World has already agreed to sponsor it.
Sponsor what?
A race. What a race. On sea scooters from the California coast to Catalina Island, underwater. It'll make newsreels, TV, and every newspaper in the country.
The channel between here and Catalina Island is a terrifically dangerous piece of water. It's full of turbulence, currents, anything you can name. You get 20 or so skin divers in there across the channel, and you're bound to end up with at least one casualty.
Not 20 divers, just 2. Blaze Green versus Mike Nelson. For a first prize of $5,000.
Miss Green, I don't sit on flagpoles, I don't dive off bridges. And I'm no stuntman. Just a guy making a living, working underwater. Working, not playing games.
Mike. You don't mind if I call you Mike? You have to understand how this is going to look to the papers. When Taylor here tells them that the famous Mike Nelson refused to race against me because he was terrified of having a hole punched in his big, fat reputation. Now, we wouldn't want that to happen, would we?
Okay. On one condition. Whoever wins, you or I, agrees to donate the $5,000 prize money to the County Water Safety Project.
Now, wait a minute. That's a lot of money. I don't think we should.
Relax, Taylor. You're pretty fast in the clinches, Mike. But so am I. Okay, it's a deal.
I'd accepted Blaze's challenge for a special reason, because it gave me an opportunity to give the scooters a tough test. I didn't know yet that this race was going to be a severe test for the participants, too. One I'd never forget. A week later, I found myself in the middle of an aquatic circus. There were hydroplane races and stunts, including some fancy jumps. Then there were water ski exhibitions. star attraction, apparently, was to be Blaze Green versus Mike Nelson.
Preparations are almost finished, folks, and the race will start in just a few moments. Mike Nelson and Blaze Green are getting into the water now, ready to start. They're all set, folks, and we're on the Sonar Queen, ready to follow them. They're ready?
On your mark, get set.
And off!
We'd barely started when Blaze cut right in front of me. I figured that it was due to lack of experience in maneuvering the scooter. She now had a slight lead. At first, we stayed close to the bottom, taking advantage of the calmer water here near the shoreline. The underwater scenery of kelp and rocks was beautiful, and I began to think that the race would be fun. Then, when we were farther out, Blaze turned around. I could see something in her hand, but I couldn't make out what it was until she used it. She released a cloud of underwater dye. It blocked my view for a few seconds, and when I came out of it, she had a really good lead. I realized then that when she cut me off before, it was no accident. This was notice that Blaze intended to win any way she could.
Be sure to stay tuned to this station for further developments in this underwater race. We return you now to our main studios. What now, Taylor?
Now we follow on sonar. Let's take a look.
Okay.
There they are now.
Our scooters were exactly matched for speed. All I could do was wait for the right break, in which experience would count.
The first buoy.
We're at the first buoy now, and at this very moment in the ocean below us, Blaze Green and Mike Nelson should be changing air tanks by now.
It was at the first buoy that I got that break, the one that I was waiting for. Changing tanks was an old story to me, but a problem for Blaze. I gained about a minute, a precious minute.
Suggest you warn the divers there's whales in the vicinity.
Hey, Skipper. That plane up there, he's radioing a warning. There's a school of whales heading across the channel, dead ahead of us.
Are they dangerous?
Not to us, but maybe to Mike and Miss Green down below.
Wow. Here's a flash bulletin, folks. A new and exciting development in the underwater contest below.
I'd managed to work up a good lead when I saw trouble dead ahead. A whale. Then another. It was a school of whales, forming a living roadblock right in front of us. I signaled to Blaze to stop, and she began to slow down. But then, before I could move, she gave her scooter the gun and headed straight for the school. For a second, I couldn't believe it. Then I realized that Blaze had no idea how dangerous a whale could be. One casual nudge from its tail and she'd be broken in half. After a quick look, she went right on through the school.
I don't see anything.
Most of the whales probably sounded when they heard us coming. Let's get back to the sonar.
One of them's gone crazy, going right through those whales.
Must be Nelson. But he's risking Blaze's life. I'll sue him.
Blaze was lucky, very lucky to get through unhurt. She had a nice lead on me now, because I had sense enough to wait until the school passed. I caught sight of her at buoy number 2. She'd already put on her fresh air tanks. She was taking mine and dropping them to the bottom. And the bottom here was about 400 feet down. She needed a good spanking, but I didn't have the time to give it to her. My air was running out. I had to get those tanks. It was close, awfully close. Without the scooter, I never would have made it. My air was just about finished, and I shifted tanks as fast as I could. Now I couldn't afford to waste a second. We were about halfway to Catalina Island. I knew this area pretty well. There were some shortcuts that I wouldn't use ordinarily, but they could help me make up time. We were heading for a seamount, a submarine mountain. The usual way to cross a mountain is over the top, but I was going straight through it. It was a natural tunnel with a fast current. It felt like riding a bobsled with no way out but straight ahead. I just hoped that nothing got in my way. I found a stopping point to check my compass. The passageway wasn't easy to follow. I saw Blaze as soon as I broke into the clear, and she saw me. Suddenly I felt something strange. It was like a firm shove, as if something was pushing the water ahead of it, toward me. Something big, I had to get to her, fast, because I knew what was coming. That gentle shove that I'd felt was the first hint of a tremendous underwater turbulence. This was a rare, terrifying underwater phenomenon. The only thing to do was to ride with it, not fight its power. I waved her back, but she was too suspicious. So I tried to catch her by surprise. I had to stop her. And right before my eyes, she ran into the full force of it.
We're about even again. Almost up to the last buoy.
I'll still bet on Mike Nelson.
What is he, half fish?
It all happened in seconds, but it seemed much longer. Blaze was slammed around, then thrown free and carried away helplessly. I tried to keep outside the turbulence and still stay up to Blaze, waiting for an opportunity to pull her free, but it was too strong, and she was moving too fast. There was one chance. If I rode with the turbulence, I could stand its force, and using the scooter, I might be able to catch Blaze. I had to try.
I'll broadcast another spot report at the buoy.
Hey, something's happening.
What is that? What's that mean?
I don't know. It looks like something grabbed one of them and carried him down. 50, 70, 100 feet.
Which one?
I can't tell.
See her trying to swim against the pressure of the current, which was the one thing that she shouldn't do. She dropped her scooter, but kept struggling desperately. She certainly had plenty of fight in her. She was almost exhausted when I reached her. For the first time, she seemed really frightened, and I couldn't blame her. I'd planned to ride out the turbulence, but I knew that Blaze would be short of air because of her struggle. We had to take a long chance and try to dive under the current. The only difficulty was it might go deeper than we could. And if it did, well, I didn't want to think about that. We moved down rapidly. It wasn't my scooter that was taking us. It was the current. The deeper we went, the less force that it had. But I didn't know how much longer Blaze's air would last, or what depth that she could stand. When we finally did get clear, I I knew that we'd have to surface dangerously fast, and I thought Blaze was beginning to black out already. I wondered if the Sonar Queen would be close.
They're coming up. But only one of them.
Who? Which one?
I don't know.
How are we tracking them?
Right on top of them, sir. They're coming up fast. Or one of them is.
All ready the recompression chamber. Cut the engine. There they are.
We came up, and there she was. I was never so glad to see a boat in my life.
What happened? What's the matter with Blaze?
She got the bends. Get the recompression chamber ready.
It's ready. What about you?
I'm going back down. Throw me down a tank. All right, drop it. All right.
There was only room for one person in the chamber, so I went down below again with a fresh tank to recompress by slow stages.
And that's the story, folks. An amazing undersea rescue against fantastic odds. Wait a minute, they're opening the recompression chamber now. And she's all right. Blaze Green is all right.
Sit down here, huh? How you feeling now, huh?
Like a wet pretzel. Like a very grateful wet pretzel.
Now you're going to hear from Blaze herself about her amazing rescue.
Hey, get away with that thing, will you?
No, please, Mike. I want to say something.
You never give up, do you? Publicity, publicity. That's all you ever think about.
I just wanted to say one thing. I tried to win this race any way I could, including cheating.
Blaze, what's the matter with you?
I nearly got myself killed in the process. Mike Nelson saved my life by risking his own. And I want to make a public apology to him. As far as I'm concerned, he's won everything in sight. I mean that, Mike.
But Blaze...
Relax, Taylor. There are some times when even Blaze Green doesn't need publicity.
Hello there. I'm Lloyd Bridges. You know, 3/5 of the world is covered by the sea. And how little most of us know about that underwater world. Go below with us again next week, huh? For another thrilling adventure in Sea Hunt.